Mighty a-hole for hosting a fundraiser, bluntly saying that it was for a teenager whose parents left her homeless. Her parents are furious. My youngest daughter is a senior in high school. One of her best friends, Lily, just turned 18 as the school year was starting and her parents kicked her out of the house that same day. My daughter told me she was sleeping on different friends' couches and talking about dropping out to work a job. So my family took her in so she could finish school. I just can't imagine a parent kicking their kid out like that. So after we did that, my daughter and Lily decided to have a community barbecue/bake sale to fundraise for some money to cover food and housing expenses. It wasn't anything I ever asked for, but the girls wanted to do something to contribute for groceries and bills. The girls made flyers and little promos for social media, and they were pretty straightforward about what was going on. They said, community barbecue/fundraiser for Lily, and a note from Lily saying, as you may know, my parents kicked me out of the house and cut off any financial support on my 18th birthday, leaving me homeless with no money or car. The Smiths gave me a home, expecting nothing in return except I stay in school and graduate. I wanted to do something to give back and pay my own way. Anyway, I shared that on social media and so did the girls, and a lot of their friends at school. The barbecue was a huge success. Almost all of our neighbors came by, and so many kids from my daughter's school and a lot of our family and family friends. The girls ended up raising several $1,000s, which I ended up putting in an education fund for Lily, where I'm also putting stuff like the cash she gives me from her job for groceries, and stuff like that. I'm planning on surprising her with it closer to graduation. Anyway, Lily's parents are irate. They saw that I posted the flyer on a community Facebook page and most everyone in town saw it. I got a call from her dad screaming into the phone at me for slandering their family online, which I felt like was such BS. I told him to either buck up and act like a parent ought to or lose my number. He started yelling on the phone again, so I hung up and blocked his number. Then I got a bunch of calls from another number. It was Lily's mom, getting angry at me about how I don't know what she and her husband have been through, and it was trashy of me to be begging the whole town for money for myself and acting like it was their fault. I was like, well, it was your fault. And she got so angry and said that she and her husband had given her daughter everything, and that she was ungrateful, which I feel is BS because they ain't even giving her a roof over her head. Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter and her friend who was kicked out at 18 host a fundraiser that was very blunt? Said it was to raise money after her family kicked her out? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Frankly, that's just a horrible thing for a parent to do. If they don't want to get slandered, maybe don't kick your child out the instant they become an adult. As many people have pointed out, it isn't actually slander against the parents if it's true. I used slander for lack of a better term. The idea that kids magically become adult the moment they turn 18 is such BS. These awful parents were only acting as parents because they were legally required to be. The moment their child was legally an adult, they felt like they were off the hook. I'm sure their daughter is better off without them, but what a difficult journey that is. Loving parents try to make their kids' life better, not worse. Not the a-hole. They're just annoyed they've been called out on their horrible behavior, and now everyone knows about their crappy parenting. They're ashamed and angry that they've been exposed, but they're putting the blame on you instead of reflecting on their own issues. You could end a thread right there, honestly. They kicked an 18-year-old out on day one of adulthood, unprepared in the slightest. Unless she's the worst person ever. That's absolutely messed up. Not the a-hole. Imagine kicking your high schooler out of the house and then getting upset at people trying to help her out. They're probably angry they can't get their hands into fundraiser money. Right? They sound like the type of parents who think their daughter owes them something since they gave her life even though she didn't ask to be born. Infuriating. Next story. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing our female coworker? Both my husband and I work for a dispensary as co-owners and managers. He is inventory manager and I'm kitchen manager, though up until last month I was at a different shop. I recently got the transfer approval. In our shop, we only employ 11 people, 3 women including me, and 8 men. One of the women is the owner's wife and she handles the finances while the other woman, Jen, handles the front end. Now, to be blunt here, Jen is a smoke show. Drop-dead gorgeous young lady, and to be blunt again, all the men here drool over her. Probably my husband included. I mean, even I drool over her, let's be honest. But she's also, I don't know how to put it. She runs through the men here. She has already dated or hooked up with 3 of them, and recently her eyes went to my husband. I'm used to this type of behavior because my husband is also a solid 10 on a bad day. But she also knows he is married, so there is definitely a disrespectful aspects of things there. However, she did not know that I was his wife until this morning. So my husband came to me yesterday and was like, "Listen, Jen has been trying to take breaks with me, and she often gets into my truck without asking whenever she sees me sitting outside, asking that I smoke her up and being flirty, as in touching his arms and legs type of thing." So I asked if he wanted me to handle it, and he said, "Please, but don't be rude about it." Because he had already told her several times he was married, and her only response is, "Oh, I already know that," and continues on her BS. Well, I knew this break was at 10, and I made a point to come out a few minutes later. I walked to the truck, and lo and behold, Jen is in the front seat. I hear my husband say, "That's my wife's seat," and she just giggles and says she is keeping it warm. Please note we are in our 30s and this girl is 23. So, I go up to the window and say, "Thanks for keeping my seat warm, but I'm here now." She just scowls at me and says, "We are kind of talking here." So I go, "Yes, I see that, and now I would like to speak to my husband," with a smile on my face. Her face drops and she gets out quickly. Now the problem is that 3 of the guys were sitting there too, and they immediately start laughing, which embarrassed her even more. The owner's wife said I should have pulled Jen aside and said something versus embarrass her in front of everyone. Am I the a-hole? Apparently, Jen and the owner's wife are the only one who thinks so. Not the a-hole. Wait, so your husband directly told her to stop her behavior. It was unprofessional/unwanted. It's not cute or funny or whatever. And she continued to harass him? Why has she just not been fired? She is the owner's wife's cousin. She has been reported several times, but due to this girl being related to the owners, nothing is done. How many times has your husband had a documented meeting with HR about being harassed by this woman? Does he have the documentation showing that HR has declined to take care of the issue? He personally has only reported it once as it just recently started happening, and he does have the written statement he made to the owner's wife. This was 5 days ago. However, there are 2 other male employees whom have reported her at least 3 times between the 2 of them, and one of them didn't get a written statement as the owner's wife said it wasn't necessary. Next story. Am I the a-hole for turning away a friend after he showed up to my birthday dinner without RSVPing? I had a birthday dinner this weekend. A week before the dinner, I sent a mass text out to 8 of my friends, telling them the location, date, and time, and to let me know by a certain date if they are coming so that I can make a reservation at a hibachi place. Most people said they could come, one friend said they couldn't make it, and another friend never responded. A couple days later, I was talking to one of the friends I invited about the dinner and they said they thought the friend who didn't answer was coming, but they weren't sure. I said that he needs to RSVP so I have the exact head count for the reservation. I never heard from the friend who didn't respond, so I made a reservation accordingly. I should add that before I made a reservation, I texted in the mass text chain with, "Last chance to RSVP as I'm making the reservation at this time today." The day of my dinner, the friend who didn't respond showed up right as the hostess was asking for the name of the reservation. I told her that we had an extra person show up, and I apologized. She looked to see if she could place all of us but was unable to find a place to accommodate an extra person without us having to wait 2 hours. So I told a friend who didn't RSVP that he could not join us for dinner. He got mad and told me I was a bad friend. He told me it was embarrassing to be turned away from a birthday party and that he wasted time and gas coming out. I told him he should have RSVP'd. He told me he told our friend that he might be going. I told him that wasn't good enough, and he should have told me. He told me that I should have asked him if he was coming. Am I the a-hole? Edit. For those stating I should have assumed he was coming because another friend said he might be, I don't work off of hearsay. Especially since the friend who said this is known for saying lots of things that don't turn out to be true or turn out to not happen. I never take what they say seriously. Now for the top comments. He got mad and told me I was a bad friend, says the guy who didn't RSVP 2 times. He apparently told me he told our friend that he might be going. Even then he was not sure if he was gonna come. He told me that I should have asked him if he was coming. What does this guy think an RSVP is? Does he want someone to take a paper slip with, "Will you come to my birthday dinner?" Tick yes or no? Someone like this is not a friend. Not the a-hole. Cut him off from your life. You don't need this toxic and manipulative embarrassment of a human being for a friend. He told someone who wasn't involved in making the reservation that he might be coming. He didn't even mention it to Opie. He clearly was just digging himself into a hole by blaming Opie and couldn't even see it. Nice friend. Actually, I'm thinking he was hedging his bets. He didn't know if he was going because he was waiting to see if he had any better options for them. He didn't, or his first choice fell through, so he just went with a backup option. Not day hole. He had 2 chances to RSVP. He ignored both. That's on him. Not day hole. You ask people to RSVP. He didn't. You didn't include him in the reservation. End of story. Telling another friend he might be coming is not an adequate RSVP. Or actually not an RSVP at all. I was like Opie's friend back in my 20s. Can't speak for the friend, but for me, I was really distracted all the time and unable to make a commitment. Until my friends let me know that my behavior was not okay. I just went along my merry way, being obtuse and rude but without ill intent. I'm not saying this to excuse Opie's friend, more to point out that Opie did exactly the right thing by drawing a line in the sand. Best case scenario is that Opie's friend is just flighty, and not a true fundamental a-hole, and he just needed a kick in the pants to shape up. Hopefully this will do the trick. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my stepbrother and sister-in-law's expenses after kicking them out? I, 29 female, was hosting a party for my mom and stepdad's wedding anniversary. I flew out my 3 step-siblings and their partners to all spend a week in my city, and then on the weekend we would have the party. I and my husband live in a pretty small flat, so there wasn't enough rooms for everyone to stay. So we offered for my stepbrother Mark and his partner Fran to stay on our yacht for the week. No one in our family likes Fran, because she's a militant social justice warrior and can't keep her opinions to herself, and she's always no general etiquette. So the week went on with Fran making out-of-pocket comments about our city and lifestyle, which was expected but still annoying. One night, me and my husband were attending a party and I didn't really fancy inviting Fran and Mark, but we did. And surprisingly everything was fine, though we didn't see them for most of the evening. We invited a few people back to our yacht for an after-party and of course Mark and Fran were there. Fran was quite intoxicated and started again making inappropriate comments that were making people feel a bit awkward. One of our friends was telling a story about how he did something funny that incurred a fine. Fran got upset and said how the fine he had paid was more than most people make in a year, and he should be ashamed to be happy to throw that much money around. She said she was sad to see the amount of money being spent in our city and how ungrateful and wasteful we all are. Cue awkward silence. I jokingly said that next time Fran should take herself camping because I didn't spend the money to fly her out here, treat her to dinners and parties and yachts for her to be sad. And everyone laughed and moved on. Eventually, everyone left and we went to bed. The next morning, I told Mark and Fran that I was humiliated and horrified by her behavior, and I wouldn't have people being disrespectful to me while staying on my property. Of course, they were still welcome to come to the party and the flights home were taken care of, but they couldn't stay on the yacht until the party. I probably would have relented if there had been genuine remorse from them, but Fran doubled down on her attitude and I'd had it. After a brief argument, they left and went to stay in a hotel. The party went off without a hitch. We were all keeping the peace for parents' sake. A few days after they'd gone home, they sent me a bill for their hotel stay, saying that since I'd kicked them off the yacht, I should pay for their expenses. I sent them a response telling them where they could put their bill. This made the rounds and my parents are now asking that I pay the bill, as it was a lot of money for them and not for me, and they came on holiday with the expectation that they wouldn't have to budget for accommodation. I said they wouldn't have had to if they'd had an ounce of decency, and that I won't be paying. But my parents are begging me so that it doesn't impact Mark and Fran financially. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Since this is a point of contention, yes, we did ask Mark and Fran if they were okay with the after party. Mark in particular was a fan of someone coming to the after party, so was very enthusiastic about it. And Fran said yes also. Had they wanted to go to bed, we'd have gone elsewhere. They came on holiday with the expectation that they wouldn't have to budget for accommodation. Well, you invited them and accommodated them with the expectation that you wouldn't be inconvenienced or humiliated by their disrespectful, sanctimonious behavior. So they should just learn to live with their disappointment just as you do with yours. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Opie paid for an entire trip and Fran wanted to criticize them for it, while still reaping the benefits. This isn't about rich versus poor. I get why people can get upset with those living lavishly. It is about benefiting from someone's kindness and showing no tact or grace or respect. That's a good point. Friend may well have a point and or justification for her arguments, but for goodness sake, there's a time and a place. Spouting off about yacht-owning people being evil whilst on said yacht is kind of stupid. That said, I'm a bit confused why someone has a small flat but owns a yacht. I feel like yacht-owning people would live in some kind of large home. But what do I know? I'm not one of the yacht-owning people. Just about the yacht thing, in our city it's pretty common. Property is super expensive. And even if you have an obscene amount of money, you won't get the kind of space you would find in New York City or Dubai, for example. They just don't build like that here. So our apartment is quite pokey. It is a 5-bedroom, but with my other step-siblings there and my husband using one as an office, we didn't have any spare space, and rooms aren't ones where you could double up. That said, even this apartment was multiple times the cost of the yacht, so the yacht wasn't out of our means of spending. And it's the same for so many people here. Info. One of our friends was telling a story about how he did something funny that incurred a fine. Would someone who doesn't own a yacht consider this a funny anecdote? Or is that a question you can even answer? Yes, it wasn't funny, haha. It was one of those things you look back on and go, yeah, that was funny in hindsight. And he told it humorously. But it wasn't an out of touch, I backed my Lambo into a lake kind of thing. It was something that could have happened to anyone, and it's only because of the job he does that he got a fine from the association that his job is under. Other people do things like he did all the time, and there is no fine. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to pay for my brother's wedding? My brother, 32 male, and his fiancée, 29 female, just got engaged, and my parents immediately started planning everything. They're so extremely excited despite them being together over 5 years. In my mind, they're already married, but this should be a fun party. I'm pretty sure my brother and his fiancée both make more money than I do, but my parents said we were going to pay for everything. Apparently, that we meant me too. I don't live at home and I guess I make fine money, but I'm finishing up school and not really sure what to do next. My parents told me I was going to pay for the all-inclusive hotel reception, per person with a minimum of 50, so a minimum of about $7,000. I laughed about this and said no, but then they got really serious and said I needed to ask my gift to them. I probably also have to get a gift. Then they made the announcement to the entire family on both sides that I was doing this. I told everyone that I wasn't. My brother and his fiancée never asked me to, but my parents say I have to, and that I'm not being supportive by not helping. I don't have a real reason to not pay for it other than I don't want to. I know it might be selfish, but over $7,000 is a lot for me, and I don't want to spend it on someone else's party. I just don't want to, and now my parents are acting like I'm the a-hole for not wanting to. They say it's tradition, but I don't fully see how. My parents didn't pay for their siblings' weddings and they eloped, so I'm not sure where this tradition would be coming from. I'm conflicted because if I maxed my credit card, then I could pay for the wedding. I just really don't want to. Am I the a-hole? Edit. For those asking/mentioning it, yes, my parents know this would be done on my credit card. When I told them I didn't have the money, they said they'd put it on my credit card. They think that's fine because I just maxed it on my own food and random stuff anyways. To be honest, probably not wrong, so this would stop me from doing that. Also, it's not my money but my credit, which I don't like because I try really hard to have good credit. And my parents have a tendency to expect me to give up my time/space/things/money for my siblings, so this honestly doesn't surprise me much. My brother's been on vacation, where he proposed last week, and doesn't know more than the "we're paying for it" to my knowledge. When I told them again yesterday that I wasn't going to do that, they seemed really insulted and asked why wouldn't you, but hearing that this isn't a normal expectation is really helpful. Thank you. Now for the top comments. I don't want to is a perfectly valid reason since you are not directly involved in the wedding. You are long past the age where your parents can tell you what to do. Not the whole. It's much easier to simply say, I don't have the money for that. OP, write a gracious note to your brother saying that while you know he would never ask such a crazy thing, but you feel bad about not being able to contribute to his wedding financially. And so, of course, you want to formally absolve him of his obligation to help pay for your wedding, no matter how much your parents insist. Tell everyone that you've already told your brother that he doesn't have to pay for your wedding, so everything is fair. And don't respond further. Not the whole. That is just weird. I've heard a lot of wedding traditions, but never this one. Never max your credit card for any party. Not even your own wedding. Your parents have cracked. Or are on crack. What the actual heck? Your parents are unhinged. They don't get to decide what to do with your money. It sounds like they can't afford to pay for the wedding, but if that's the case, they should say so, not try to make it your responsibility. Also, if your brother and fiancé have been together for over 5 years, then they can damn well pay for their wedding themselves. Do not put yourself into a bad financial situation by entertaining this nonsense. Say no, and refuse to discuss any further. If they bring it up, hang up or walk away. Not the a-hole. Truthfully, it's not even his money. He'd have to max out his credit card, so it'd be borrowed money. They're trying to spend money he doesn't even have. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not replacing one of my groomsmen after he cheated on a bridesmaid? My fiancé and I are getting married in 2 months. I have 4 groomsmen, including my brother, cousin, a close childhood friend, and close college buddy. My fiancé's best friend was in a long-term relationship with his childhood friend, but unfortunately for her, he got exposed as a cheater. I don't know the details of it, and honestly I don't want to, but I wasn't aware of the cheating prior to the time it was discovered. I feel that his relationship with her is none of my business. My fiancé, on the other hand, does. She now hates him and is demanding that I replace him. She said he'll be a toxic presence to our wedding because the woman he cheated on is going to be a bridesmaid. I was bothered by this. This guy's one of my closest friends. I've known him since we were 18 and I want him to be a groomsman. I said that they both can go and just set aside their beef for one day. After all, the day isn't about them. It's about us, and their relationship is none of our business. She said that she was putting her foot down on this and that my friend wouldn't be in her wedding. I said that if it's that big of a deal, she can drop his ex from the wedding, and that if she doesn't want that, then we can go along with the initial plan. She's been angry at me since, and hasn't relented on this. Am I the a-hole? I think you're incredibly naive to think they can just set aside their beef for one day because the wedding is about you and your fiancé. The bridesmaid and your friend are humans, not robots. And your fiancé will have to see your friend there too, and he is a scum in her eyes. Unfortunately, it does sound like you have to choose. I don't blame your fiancé for thinking that because it will cause a needed drama at your wedding. And let's be clear, it's your friend's fault. So if anyone has to be kicked out of the wedding, it should be him, not the bridesmaid. So yeah, technically you're the a-hole. The real landmine being revealed here is that Opie and fiancé have very different views around cheating, as in Opie isn't bothered by it. His fiancé should be paying attention to this. My thoughts exactly. Opie, you're the a-hole. Different views on friendship too. Opie's fiancé doesn't want to put her best friend through needless pain, and is empathetic enough to be bothered by the idea of someone she loves spending her wedding day in some pained charade. Whereas Opie doesn't care, apparently. Even if I planned on an open marriage and concerns about cheating did apply to me, I would not marry someone whose ideas of loyalty or empathy were so incompatible with mine. Who was so completely freaking uninterested in supporting a loved one through a difficult time? Can you imagine how emotional that poor girl would be? It's sick that he doesn't care at all about his fiancé and another person's feelings like that. I really hope Opie's fiancé sees this. You're the a-hole. Nice victim blaming. The cheater is the one who gets kicked to the curb. All you are doing is showing your fiancé that you will protect cheaters and give them a pass. She's going to wonder if you do that for your friends. They're likely doing the same for you. I hope she makes this her hill to die on, and she will learn whether she should marry someone who's willing to condone cheating. Edit/update. Fine, I freaking get it. I'll kick one of my best friends out to prove I'm not a cheater. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my uncle's second wife that she needs to understand his first wife will always be important to our family? My uncle Nick was married to my aunt Lana until her death 7 years ago. They were married before I was even born, so I grew up with her. I was 15 when she died, while my cousins, their kids, were 8, 7, and 5. My whole family adored Lana as though she was biologically one of us. They had known her most, if not all, of her life. My uncle met his second wife, Janet, 4 years ago. They started dating a few months later and they got married 2 years ago. Janet has struggled with the fact that Aunt Lana is still remembered by the family. We still mark the anniversary of her passing. We remember her birthday and leave stuff on her grave. My cousins talk about her a lot. They say how they wish she was still here. It's not that we dedicate our whole lives to it. But when someone brings up family photos, she's in many of them. Same with old family videos. She was also responsible for the flower garden in my grandparents' house, and there are a lot of memories of her. Janet has asked my parents and grandparents why we feel the need to remember Aunt Lana as though she was their daughter/sister instead of Nick's wife. Once, she grumbled that my youngest cousin spent his art class making something for his mom's grave for Mother's Day instead of making her something. She has asked my parents and grandparents to take down the old family photos that include Lana. It was my cousin's birthday party a couple of weeks ago where both sets of his grandparents were posing for a photo, and he had brought up his mom, and Janet started grumbling and sulking that she had come up. I asked her if she was okay, and she said she hated mentions of that woman, that she had never seen in-laws as fond of a late daughter-in-law before, that they actually mourned her passing after so long. She said she had figured she would have stepped into her place by now. I told her she needed to understand that Aunt Lana was part of her history, was a big part of mine, and that she was always going to be part of our family and someone we loved. I told her we could love both of them, but as long as she competes with my aunt, she won't ever be able to get close to us, because she never tries to hide her feelings, and we can't just act like someone we love didn't exist. She had a tantrum where she called me an insensitive witch. She told me that I should have been dropping to my knees and apologizing for making her feel less than, but instead tell her she has no right to expect her place in the family to be put before a dead woman. I was shocked, as were the rest of the family who were very unhappy with her, especially Uncle Nick. But I do feel kind of bad. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Yo, what? She got mad because your cousin made something for their mother's grave? Not the a-hole. If you compete with the dead, even more so when they were well loved when they were alive, you're gonna lose. Hands down. I thought the same. She should stop trying erasing people and earn her own space. Exactly. She should be helping those kids celebrate their mother and forming her own niche herself. I know a man who lost his wife after a long struggle with cancer. She was the rock of the family, a huge part of the community, and an amazing woman. A few years later, the husband remarried. The second wife moved into the family home, and one of the first things she did was to set up a section of the living room to contain photos of her being the first wife, her and the husband, and her and the kids. She is incredibly respectful of the memory of the first wife, and because of that, she has created a space for herself in the family. I think it speaks volumes that you left that disagreement feeling bad, and she left it feeling angry. She sounds bitter and insecure. That's not on you or your family. That's a her thing. I always taught my kids that you can never have too much love in your life. That goes for people that have died as well. You'll never forget them, nor stop loving them. Clearly no one ever taught your aunt that lesson. I feel bad for your cousins. You're clearly not the a-hole, and I hope she gets some clarity. Like, sometimes people come into relationships like this and expect people to forget certain people because they're dead. Sorry, that is not how that works. Wild. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for cursing at my sister-in-law? For context, I, Charlotte, 30 female, and my husband, Cameron, 41 male, got married 3 years ago. We met when I was 24 and he was 35. My husband is a wealthy man, but I had no insight into his salary/savings, etc. when we married, and it was not a factor in my falling in love with him at all. We have an age gap of 11 years, and while the rest of my husband's family are fine with us, his sister, Amy, 39 female, has always been weird about it. When we got married, in her speech, she made a comment about how when I was born, my husband was in middle school. I would have been fine with this comment, but the way she said it rubbed me in the wrong way. She made a few quips about me living the easy life and using my husband's credit card, etc. She basically made it seem like I was a gold digger in front of mine and my husband's entire family. This really angered me because I earn a good wage myself and I love my work. I didn't say anything about it, however, because I wanted to keep the peace. And over the years at family gatherings, she made comments about me using her brother as a human credit card. She would always give me a dirty look. And when we were one-on-one, she would tell me that my husband deserved better than someone who uses him for his money, and how she earns much more than me. This is just an insight into why my patience with her was thinning. Fast forward 4 years, I am pregnant with mine and my husband's first child. We had a baby shower of sorts in which my husband's sister was invited. I was hesitant to invite her as I had never clicked with her at all, and frankly I disliked her. During the party, I was talking to my other sister-in-law, Kelly, 36 female, whom I am close to as she is a great friend, and I just get along with her better. Amy was drinking, not heavily, when she came over and saw me and Kelly talking happily. She made a snippy comment about how I always left her out and how she was always being pushed out of her brother's life by me, like how at my wedding she wasn't a bridesmaid but Kelly was. This was because I got along well with Kelly and met my husband because I was friends with her. So of course she was in my wedding party. I was already at my wit's end with Amy after a comment she made about me using this baby to trap my husband into never getting a divorce. So I said to her, why would I make you my bridesmaid when you're such a witch to me all the time for no goddamn reason? There's always a problem with you. And frankly, Amy, I'm done with your BS. Go F yourself. And stormed off. My husband was upset that I'd said those things, but he understood why I felt that way and that he would speak to Amy about it. Amy told my in-laws what I said, and I got a call from my mother-in-law asking me to apologize to Amy for what I said. Amy has also contacted me and told me repeatedly that I am an a-hole. I have spoken to my mother-in-law about how Amy has been saying rude things the whole time me and my husband have been together, and that I would not apologize to Amy. And if she wanted to meet her niece or nephew, that she would have to apologize to me. And now Amy is blowing up my phone even more. So am I the a-hole? I feel like what I said was justified, but maybe my pregnancy hormones are making me act irrationally. Edit: since many people have commented, yes, my husband has spoken to his sister about her behavior and asked her to stop, but she gets upset and says that he's choosing me over her. Not the a-hole. Amy's family, especially your husband, should have addressed her comments and behaviors years ago. If they had, you wouldn't have felt that way you did at that moment. You owe no apologies unless Amy apologizes for bullying you for so long. Thank you. Like you said, she has always made comments about how I'm using her brother, and I'm so sick of it. My husband has confronted her about this on several occasions, but she just brushes it off and tells him to stop choosing his wife over his flesh and blood. Next time she says something like that, hit her with this. He did not choose his family. None of us do. He did, however, choose you as his wife. His primary family is now you and that baby, the family he chose to create. I'd be willing to bet if he actually had to choose between you, she'd lose. Warn her not to push it that far for her own sake. That's a very good point, but she's always been attached to my husband, and they're close. But they've drifted since this rift between me and her. Thank you for your support. Update 1. I have seen and read all of your guys' comments and I'm so grateful you all agree with me. I have tried to respond to all of you, but there's so many of you. I have decided to confront my husband about her and tell him that I want to go no contact with his sister. I will update you guys when I do. Update 2. I have spoken to my husband about going no contact with Amy and I showed him this post and your guys' comments, and he told me I was totally out of line. He said that he would not stop talking to his sister, and that's ridiculous. He said that the idea of his sister never meeting our kid is ludicrous. I'm sat in the bathroom crying. I don't know what to do. He told me that this whole situation has been blown out of proportion and that the internet is feeding me a pack of lies. I know that this isn't an advice sub, but I need to know what to do. I don't want Amy anywhere near my precious baby. I've listened to you guys and I totally agree. But what's my next step here? I'm considering posting something to relationship advice because I genuinely don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole for evicting my roommates after buying the condo we rented together? I live in a small condo, about 600 square feet, with my roommate Caitlin. We didn't know each other before moving in. She rents the bigger room and I rent the smaller one. Our landlord told us she wants to sell the condo, and I jumped in on the opportunity to buy it. She sold it to me almost 15% below market price, so it's great. I already gave her the deposit and we will sign the papers in a few days. Then the condo will be mine 3 months from now. After me giving our landlord a deposit, Caitlin was ecstatic. She brought a champagne to celebrate, told me I'm the best, and that she will save so much money from now on by not having to pay rent. I don't know where she got this idea from, and I thought our landlord already told her how long she has until she has to move out, but it seems not. I told Caitlin that it's a small condo and don't need a roommate anymore. She will have to move out in 3 months, but I'd gladly help her look for a new place. She flipped out. She asked me if I seriously want to evict her and throw her out on the street. She said she thought we were friends, and if she had the money to buy the place, she would have let me stay for free because that's what decent people do. Then she switched and started bargaining with me that I can have the bigger room and she will stay in the small room. She won't bother much, and so on. I feel a bit guilty. I really thought it was given that she will have to move out. Maybe I should have told Caitlin before giving the deposit to our landlord. I feel sorry for her. I know she doesn't make a lot of money, but at 26, I don't want to live in a small room anymore, especially if I own a condo. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Our landlord told us that she will put the condo on the market in a few weeks, but we don't have to worry. She will tell the new owner that she won't give over the keys right away, so we have enough time to look for a new place. We are month to month. I didn't think Caitlin would think she didn't have to move out anymore, just because I'm the one who bought the condo. As for the legal issues, where we live, there is no such thing as a lease continuing with a new owner. I can't evict Caitlin because I'm not the one she has a contract with. Her lease is with the current landlord, and landlord has to give Caitlin a written notification, which seems like she hasn't done yet. I'm still buying the house. In my first edit, I explained what our landlord told us 2 weeks ago. She first announced that she will sell soon and we will need to move out. Then I talked to her and eventually made an offer. Now for the top comments. She immediately assumed she wouldn't have to pay rent? Why? To me, this would have been a conversation of if I would then pay rent to you, or if I should start looking for a place. You gave her ample time to find a new place and offered to help look. Not stay home. That's the part I don't understand either. Pretty entitled for someone to assume that they won't have to pay rent somewhere. I hope he's not the a-hole at all. Right, I would have at least assumed I'd still have to pay the same rent. I am disturbed that Caitlin first thought was that she would live rent-free. That is incredibly entitled. Did she think you got it for free? If you want to do a nice gesture, you could help her look for a new place, or help her pay for movers, etc., depending on the severity of her financial situation. But you are not entitled to keep her as a roommate, nor should you feel an ounce of regret for doing what is right for you. Congratulations on your new place. Not stay home. Not only did she expect that she'd stay rent-free, but she initially expected to keep everything the same, with her in the larger room. The audacity. Not the a-hole. Once you have officially bought the condo, find a good landlord lawyer and legally notify her of how long she has to stay. If she stays beyond that, you will have to evict her, and having a lawyer to do it properly is important. Be careful that she doesn't do any damage to the place. Also, make sure the landlord gives you the security deposit both she and you paid. You will have to return her portion. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being mad at my fat roommate who has been wearing my clothes and completely ruining them? Recently, I have been noticing that any new clothes I get are becoming less tight and looser a few days after first purchasing them. It was making me doubt myself if I was the reason for that, like maybe I was gaining weight and was loosening them when I tried them on myself. But then I found out that it's actually my roommate who has been trying them out for a few hours when I wasn't home. I went really crazy at her. She basically ruined like 5 new sets of expensive clothes. They are so loose now because of her fat body. It all looks so ridiculous and uncomfortable in them as I'm much skinnier than her. Her excuse was that they looked so nice that she wanted to try them out, especially when she has a problem finding new clothes she can wear, her words. And I don't like it because she didn't tell me about it until I caught her myself. She said that she thought it was something so insignificant that she didn't need permission from me. Let's just say that things didn't go well, and I decided to get a lock for my closet, which offended her and got her on the defensive, especially when I called her fat, which she is. She is literally obese. She is 80 kilograms, 157 centimeters. Am I the a-hole? Note, I didn't insult her with fat. It wasn't an insult. It was just me telling her that our body sizes are very different, which is where I used the word fat to describe her body size, which it took as an insult, and that offended her and got her on the defensive. Not the a-hole. It's your property. And not asking if they can try them on is a kind of invasion of privacy and a sanitary issue. Good luck with this roommate of yours, OP. Yes, I suppose it would be more diplomatic to phrase it as too big, but facts are still facts. Not the a-hole. The last thing I will do is be diplomatic if someone is stealing from me, and she very well knew what she was doing. Not the a-hole. Not sure why people are saying everyone sucks here. She literally ruined your clothes because she's bigger than you. Fat. That's the word. Could have you used different words? Yes. Agreed. I am fat. It is not a bad word. It is an accurate description of my body. I wouldn't put it on someone else's clothes at all. But I especially wouldn't do it when I knew that our difference in size would cause damage to the clothes. I agree with you. I have too much fat on my body, therefore I'm fat. I don't like being called fat. I don't think anyone does. But I wouldn't put myself in that position to anger someone by basically stealing. if only for a while, someone else's clothes and ruining them. Not the a-hole who tries on someone else's clothes, especially expensive clothes, without asking. It was mean to call her fat, but she has to know you're not the same size since she's been stretching out your clothing. You would have been better off explaining to her what happened and asking her to just buy them from you at that point because they can no longer fit you properly, before you go verbally insulting her and throwing locks on your closet door. You would have been better off explaining to her what happened. But why? The roommate is fat, not stupid. The roommate knows what happened. The roommate is the reason all of this happened. Next story. Am I the a-hole for my response when my boyfriend brought up the apartment purchase/ownership in front of his family? Context: I, female 29, have been with my boyfriend Adam, male 27, for 2.5 years. He's the quiet/shy type. It's very hard to get him to open up about what bothers him. And for now, I'm the one with an income. We get along easily, though he can be a bit unreasonable sometimes. Example, he doesn't cook because he's worried I won't like his food, but still cooks for himself, and it smells pretty telling that his cooking is good. Another example is that he doesn't do most chores, saying he's worried he might break/damage something. It's frustrating, but we're working on fixing it. Now onto the more complicated issue. I put money aside since 2015 to buy an apartment, and I'm finally able to get it done this year. When I told him this, he got agitated and said I should wait a little longer till we're married. But I said no. He started complaining about how bad he feels about seeing me buy the apartment myself without having him contribute. I asked what I was supposed to do because it kinda sounded like a he problem, no offense. But he got so worked up and gave me 2 options. 1 is I put his name on the title, and 2 is not buy the apartment till marriage so it'll become a shared marital asset. I said no and that was final and he should drop it. He did eventually. Then at his family's house, I was taken aback when he started complaining about the apartment, and again told me to either put his name on the title or wait till marriage to buy it, cause he feels like there's a huge power imbalance here, and that he can't bring himself to accept it. He also said that it makes him feel like he contributes nothing. I snapped and said, the reason you feel like you contribute nothing is because you literally contribute nothing, and I suggest you fix that by actually finding a job and having a decent income. His family looked shocked. He glanced at me, then got up and walked away. I waited for him to come back, but had to go home because his mom said he felt too overwhelmed and wanted some space. She then basically started shaming me for my statement and hinted about financial mistreatment and control over her son. He's not home yet, demanding another tell about the apartment, probably expecting me to agree to one option. Added in case it matters, he has a disability that limits his job opportunities. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. 1. Second paragraph sounds a lot like weaponized incompetence. 2. He brought it up in front of family to get mama to back him. 3. He sounds like a bit of a leech, to be honest. And 4. For what reason does he want his name on the title if he hasn't put money into it? The answer to 4 is so that he can break up with her, force the sale and get money out of it. He doesn't have a job, so that would be the only way he's getting any money. This. Take the apartment and lose the boyfriend. It will not get better. I won't clean as this is not my apartment. Why would I help move in your apartment? And for the next boyfriend, if he goes to the husband stage, keep your apartment on a prenup. In summation, my unemployed boyfriend, who does no housework, refuses to cook, only for me as he will happily cook for himself, and contributes nothing financially, expects me to give him half of my apartment. He wants this to be a marital asset because he wants to be able to take half of it freely when he walks away. Girl, you are not the a-hole. But why are you even in this relationship? I will seriously never understand these women who describe their men and there's not a single positive attribute to him. Like, girl, you clearly have cognition enough to realize your boyfriend does sweet nothing for you, so why are you with him? It comes down to the person thinking that having someone, anyone, is better than being alone. We've all been there at some point. I honestly do not know why Opie is with this guy though. He sounds like an absolute loser. Opie has her bar set on the floor. Not the a-hole. He's playing a con and he literally told you. He wants his name on the home or he wants you to marry him so he still legally gets the home as your husband. I suggest leaving before you purchase the home, so he has no legal claim at all. This guy's doing a marinara flag dance with his weaponized incompetence. Put my name on a property I gave zero money towards? Absolutely not. OP, you nailed it when you told him he contributes all of nothing to your relationship. Why on earth are you dragging this relationship out? That's not a relationship. He's basically demanding you adopt him. Not the a-hole. Being single with your own apartment is better than carrying the dead weight around for life. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my wife to help pay for private school despite separate finances? I have been married to Stella for 7 years now. Together, we have 5 children. Daughters from my previous relationship, Kira 11 and May 7. A son and daughter from Stella, Brianna 13 and Jaden 8, and a son together, Lucas 2. My 2 are 50-50 custody while my stepchildren only see their bio father every second weekend. My wife and I agreed to split finances and have mostly kept separate, aside from a joint account for essentials, bills, groceries, house, etc. We both used to be high earners, though had terrible hours. When our parental leave for Lucas was finishing, our children begged us not to go back to work, that they hated the before/after school care and wanted us. In the end, my wife went back but I quit and got a new job. It was much lower pay but essentially school hours, so I was able to be there for our kids. Stella has been paying more of our joint expenses, but otherwise has been fine. I wouldn't say the split has been firm though. I do buy stuff for my stepchildren or pay when I take them all out. It's more the big payments that are separate. Brianna goes to a private high school. I was talking about high schools to my sister since Kira is year 6 and realized that on my current pay, I won't be able to afford to send her with her sister. My ex is barely willing to pay the costs related to public school, let alone a private one. The school is so much better than the nearby public school, and I know Kira wants to go to her sister's school, so I try to talk to Stella and ask if she would be willing to help. It's education, and she's close with my daughters, so it's not like I'm asking her to pay for something crazy. Stella refused, and I would have accepted it even though I was annoyed. But then she went on saying that I knew we were split finances, and I made my choice when I took the lower pay job. That I got more time for less money, so I can't complain that I'm paid less. I got pretty upset about that. I didn't stay home for fun. It was for our family, our children. I loved my job, but I had to sacrifice it for them. It was worth it, of course, but still. Stella basically said that it was my decision, so tough luck that she's not going to finance me. I got angry with that and told her that she knew the consequences of her job, so she can deal with her children then. Her money won't be used on mine, so I won't use my extra time on hers. They can stay in care until our old hours. Stella got angry back, accusing me of using her for money and calling me a complete a-hole for suggesting what I did for my stepchildren. We argued pretty bad. She thinks I'm being greedy, selfish, and petty. But it's not like I'm asking to mooch. I would still foot 50% and get my ex to contribute as much as I can get her to. Yes, it was my choice. But it was for all the children, for our family. Besides, I literally take care of my stepchildren more than my own, 85% versus 50%. I'm not just being lazy or focusing on my own children. I've been there for them all. So I think it's frankly unfair for her to refuse to help even a little. But obviously she thinks I'm being an a-hole. Everyone sucks here, but you more. Like heavily leaning you're the a-hole. You needed to discuss this when you decided to cut your hours. It doesn't sound like the decision was in any way a mutual one made between you and your wife, but all you. Despite that, your wife has been willing to pay more for your shared expenses, which at least somewhat compensates for the extra childcare you were doing. For some reason, you waited until your kid was about to start high school to even think about where she'd go and how you'd afford it. You sprung on your wife that despite your prior agreements being different, you want her to pay tens of thousands in tuition she wasn't planning on. Also, no kid needs to go to private high school. Your daughter will be fine at a public school. I also assume you are not paying any of Brianna's tuition. So she's going to have to pay full tuition for her kids and half for yours. That's a ton of money. I don't know exactly what she makes, but she'd have to be incredibly wealthy for that to be chump change. Your wife also should have been more proactive about thinking through how all this would play out. You should have made a thorough and explicit agreement when you quit your job. This marriage sounds doomed, honestly. Never change jobs for less pay without considering all of the financial implications. Don't change jobs that will have lifestyle implications. Yep, Money is way more important than your kids. This subs sometimes, I swear. Changing the lifestyle of a partnership that you wish to continue should be discussed as much as possible and agreed upon. Unilateral decisions make for short partnerships.